Sons of Monkeys began as the ambitious academic idea of a first-generation Canadian struggling to figure out his place in the world. Whether it was my career, my love life, or just my identity, I needed to make sense of the things I was experiencing and observing, and I tried to do this through the lens of science. What I discovered was that human history could be more than just the stories of its winners, and the generational tragedies and anger of its surviving losers. Human history was actually the tale of multiple species interacting, with the vast majority of these exchanges being examples of species competition. Suddenly, not only the past but also the present became a lot clearer. The effects of colonialism on indigenous peoples, the DMZ, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, really every major geopolitical schism or conflict could be described in this way. After all, there are four predictable outcomes when two species with essentially the same needs collide. Species 1 or Species 2 goes extinct. 3, they exist in an unstable coexistence until one outbreeds the other. And lastly, a stable coexistence forms after they manage to split the resource, and internal competition reduces either species' ability to displace the other. Imagine turning on the news and listening to political pundits describing human ecology. All I had to do was prove that humans could be different species. That part was rather easy. Unfortunately, such a conclusion can easily be twisted and used to justify something perverse, like the Bible, and by extension make me a monster for even suggesting the idea, hence the pen name. In reality, species do more than just compete. On the rare positive end of the spectrum, we have mutualisms and extreme mutualisms like symbiosis, I guess something similar to Australia and New Zealand. But when war goes a little too far, we venture into the realms of predator-prey dynamics and parasitism, or as most of us know it as, genocide, slavery, and the chronic persistent hunger caused by agricultural parasites, cash crops, and corrupt rural governments. Personally, I no longer really care whether or not people accept my description of humanity as historically a collection of multiple interacting species. We can semantically swap species with races, with ethnicities, or with the commonly accepted term populations, and it won't change the fact that there are people on this earth that will hate another group of people, regardless of whether we call them species or populations. The dehumanization of the other is as much a hallmark of humanity as our ability to be upset at the very notion that we might not be a single species. At the end of the day, all we really care about is how we behave towards one another, and perhaps my thesis would gain greater traction if I said we behaved like different species, while leaving the taxonomic hand grenade left to be settled by more accoladed academia. As we look towards the future, how can we avoid the worst of our species interactions? What happens when a species now has the ability to bar hop the entire planet? No other species barriers have been tested by such an extreme degree of secondary contact. But I don't think love will cause us to meld into a sea of beige or brown. Some of us will no doubt mix in views, but others might hold out. And I think the rise in extremism, whether it takes the shape of ISIS, white nationalism, or vegans, are prime examples of increasingly divergent and dissenting social signals in an attempt to push back and maintain species barriers in the face of globalism. Humans will always stratify and splinter in an attempt to not only survive, but flourish. Will we protect some human species over others? Will we defend the cute, cuddly, endangered ones with as much pomp and furor as the panda? Perhaps the question is not how do we do better as a collection of humans moving forward, but rather when do we do better? If we're not careful, the future may unwittingly push for newer forms of tyranny to overcorrect for the sins of the past.